Zone Court Administration. Our office hours are 8 a.m. until 4:30
Okay.
p.m., Monday through Friday. If you're calling to
Okay,
report
so
cars, assessors, public defenders, or county
I have a supposed court date tomorrow regarding this last situation where I was sleeping in my car on the way back from Minnesota. As I have said, my car was off. I was sleeping. I have a supposed court date tomorrow regarding this. They're trying to say, of course, their favorite thing to say is that I was disorderly. I'm sorry, I'm sleeping in my car. You're violating. There's two men that show up in an unmarked car, and I'm supposed to open up the door. And I said, I don't have to open up. I'm sleeping. I didn't have to open up. It's my private property. And, like the average, I looked up the average um, amount of people that are sleeping in their car in Minnesota, and it's about 8,000 people. Okay, an emergency, or on average it said 1,700 to 1,800 a night, and the total was like 8,000 or something homeless people in Minnesota. Okay, so clearly I'm not the only one that's ever slept in their car in Minnesota. But of course I'm on a targeted list, as we all know, which I've stated. So of course they're illegally surveilling me through my phone. I was. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Is when you're tired, pull over, or would you rather have had me continue driving and get in an accident? Is that what you wanted to do, Sheriff? Because of course that's more safe. If you were concerned about safety at all, which clearly you aren't, we know the sheriffs are corrupt. Okay, especially in Minnesota. Okay, and then if you were concerned about that, and then if it was a problem where I was parking, it didn't say there was any problem. You can't always find a travel lodge, especially in smaller towns. That just isn't possible. So now in Minnesota, there's so many homeless people that they actually started creating these safe zones where you can park, because it's become such a problem. But that's in the cities. That's in Duluth and in Minneapolis. Okay, so we are working. This is a problem, as they have started to actually work with now. But I wasn't doing anything wrong at all. I was sleeping, and if there was a problem, then they could have just said, we would like you to move because the person here doesn't want you to park here. It was a public lot. Okay. All they just had to say, okay, can you wake up now and just move your vehicle, ma'am? If somebody didn't want me to park there. Oh no. Oh no. What I wake up to is two men in an unmarked car or whatever. I didn't even know. And like we all know what happened to Melissa Hortman. There was no woman. And they start pounding on my door, almost breaking my glass, and demand that I get out of the car. So anyway, I have this court date, that I think like half my life I spend fighting with the police and in courts. I've talked about this since I became a whistleblower. I've been pulled over 50 sometimes now. 50. Okay, I mean, I don't know of anybody in the whole history of our country that's been pulled over more times than I have. It's literally, and then like each court date, it's like 1, 2, 3 times. I literally have spent probably literally like 20% of my life in the last 30 in the last 13 years dealing with the police and the courts. It's every day I'm stalked. It's every day I'm fighting the courts on something. And I have to always make sure I have different things, with my vehicles. It's so bad for me that I've just gotten to the point where I just don't even drive anymore. I just ride with people. And I'm hearing that it's the same way for women in Europe because of the harassment and them being raped by the kind of people they've brought into Europe. Yeah, we're afraid to even leave our houses now. So this is an emergency. The women are scared. There's men that are targeted individuals as well, but I am just an extremely, extremely targeted person because I was such a high level whistleblower, and my bloodline, and and I'm touching on subjects that that involve these secret societies and things like that. So anyway, so I get this message yesterday, or on Sunday, and it's not even from a real court number. I'm just showing you how corrupt the courts are in Minnesota. Okay, so it's from some, not even like a real court number. It's from some 99408. Okay, this is on a Sunday, and you're telling me this is a real court number? And I was like, this doesn't even look like a real court number. Okay, and they said, okay, call this number to find out more information about your court hearing. The first hearing is just like, okay, guilty, not guilty, whatever. It's like, okay, so I call this number that's listed. Okay.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed.
Interesting.
Please check the number and
That's
dial
not a
again.
real court number. Just like your text message that you sent me on Sunday was not from a real court in Minnesota. It's from a 99408 number. It wasn't a real court number. It's not a real court. See? I just called the number that was listed there, 320-839-2536. Guess what? It's not a real court number. That means whoever texted me on Sunday is working with the CIA.
Please check the number and dial
It's not a real court administrator that sent me this. Okay, this is what I've been dealing with for years. Okay, so so just give you an example of how corrupt the courts are. I've exposed the corruption of the voting system. And what I experienced personally in Golden Valley, it wasn't just the voting system. When I was there, happened to be voting that one time, and I witnessed this fireman coming in right in, and like I said, there was no chain of custody, there was nothing signed. He came right in, grabbed the ballot box, brought it right over to the fire and police department. Okay, and the other situation that I had with the fire department in Golden Valley, Minnesota, was when I was renting at that place from this guy named Hector. He was the landlord. When I first moved there, that was when I was working in manufacturing in Minnesota still and stuff like that. And most of the time Hector was away. He's a roofing contractor. It was okay for a while, and then he apparently started getting in cahoots with these Masons. I can only imagine. So then crazy stuff started happening. We had, I woke up to like 3 inches of water. Okay, because he had this pipe issue downstairs, and this was in the middle of the night. I was sleeping at the time. I had just moved in. I was sleeping on a air mattress. My radio was on the floor. I could have been electrocuted in the middle of the night. I woke up to 4 inches of water. Okay, then we had, it was all downstairs. It was where the women rent. Okay, then we started having these issues where we had sewer water coming up through our showers. Okay, it's because he wasn't taking care of some kind of pipe issue downstairs. Okay, and we didn't know what it was exactly that it needed to get fixed. And then this just went on, and then I actually turned him in to the fire department, a formal complaint. This is the fire department in Golden Valley. I filed a formal complaint because this is a health and safety violation. We had sewer water coming up. And we, like I said, we could have been electrocuted because that water that came up the shower the first time I moved in started in the middle of the night. And my dog jumped on me, and she was all wet, and that's what woke me up. But I was in the middle of sleeping in the middle of the night. Okay, then here's me speaking to the Golden Valley water maintenance, and they were like, "Oh, we don't know what to do." I think he's the one who told me turn it into the fire department. I don't know. It's like pass the buck type games. Okay, these are really serious health and safety violations. So that's that I turned it into that was an issue with the fire department again, and I never heard a single there was never a single follow-up done in any way. I eventually ended up moving out of there. That guy is very dangerous, this landlord. And he was just, he's just crazy. I mean, literally, he's a dangerous landlord. That's in Golden Valley. And then I heard from other renters that had rented there before that. And yeah, this guy is just nuts. Okay. And he has no business being a landlord. Okay. But anyway, getting back to this court thing here, then I tried calling, because supposedly I have a hearing tomorrow, the first hearing for this. They're trying to charge me. Of course, they love to say I was disorderly and that I was, it's just, they're just constantly, it was like I was just trying to get out of Minnesota, get all my stuff out of there. And it was just like a last effort attempt to try to get me on something is all this is. Okay. So this is in Ortonville. And then, I'm trying to call the court administrator number.
Welcome to Verizon Wireless.
In Ortonville, and nobody picks up. Nobody's picking
You
up.
have reached Big Stone County. If this is an emergency, hang up.
They
and
said
dial
this is like an automated line, and nobody's picking up.
press 2.
Okay, because I'm not going to drive to court. I'm just going to wait for a Zoom
If this is an emergency,
link,
hang up
court
and dial
link,
911.
to be sent to me. I'm not going to Minnesota, okay, for this court date. Okay, I cannot get there, and I do not feel safe driving in Minnesota. So there's clearly, I am not I do not have to go there. You can send a Zoom court date, but now there's no number that I can actually call because nobody's picking up the line. You see how they do this? So then there'll be a warrant for my arrest.
Big Stone County.
See, this is a way they're going to try to get me back out there.
Hang up and dial 911.
And then they'll screw with me again as I'm driving there. I'll probably be pulled over right on the way to court. Okay, see, I cannot.
For family service,
I have been pulled over in Minnesota. Since 2013, I've been pulled over 35 times, I think. 35 times. Okay, I have all the documents, court documents. Okay, this is the whole packet. This went on for years. Okay, so this is what I'm dealing with right now today with the Minnesota courts. And I'm just going to tell you just a situation that happened. This was the one in 2023 where this is the actual conviction where I got charged for a wireless device and a brake light issue. Okay, so I'm just going to break down exactly what happened here so you understand how dangerous Minnesota is and how dangerous the courts are. Okay, and the whole system. And this all involves, I believe, that these secret societies. Okay, so I was working at Wagner at the time, and I think I had just been in for an oil change or something, and now I know like a lot of the mechanics in Minnesota are working in cahoots with they're masons, and they work in cahoots with the police, and I know this now. And so apparently I had a brake light issue out after I was in for this oil change. Okay, so the maintenance, whoever did the maintenance on my car was in cahoots with the Plymouth police in Plymouth, Minnesota, where I was working at the time. And there was most mornings when I was driving to work at 5:30 in the morning, the police would sit at the fire department there and go in Plymouth and watch people drive to work. Okay, we're just trying to get to work on time, and they're sitting there just stalking us. They sat at the fire department there. Okay, so, but normally they didn't pull anybody over. They were just sitting there. Okay, but this morning they pulled me over, and they said the reason for pulling me over was I had a brake light out. And I said, oh, well, normally it's just a warning. And not only did they pull me over, they followed me right into the parking lot of Wagner in Plymouth, Minnesota there. And that's private property, and that's illegal. And because I wasn't driving that far, it wasn't a long drive for me to work. And they followed me all the way there. All I had to do was pull around the corner. They're behind me, and I pulled around in the corner and into the parking lot. They followed me all the way in. They made me late for work. And they said, and I said, well, clearly I wasn't aware. Normally a brake light issue is a warning, officer. And they said, oh, but you were on your phone too. And I said, no, I wasn't. I was driving to work. It's 5:30 in the morning. Okay. It's 5:45 or whatever it was, So anyway, he was a jerk and he gives me 2 tickets. Okay. So this was, I think, 2022, something like this. I think that this happened 23, somewhere around there. And so I got the brake light fixed immediately. I went to Midas and got the brake light fixed immediately. And I actually faxed the court, and I have all these documents here that I got it done. I faxed the court. I thought that was cleared up. Okay, the first court date, I said, is that cleared? And the judge would not tell me if that's cleared. And I said, ma'am, I got the brake light part done immediately and I faxed the court. Is that part at least cleared up? And she wouldn't tell me. And then I requested the footage for this supposed wireless charge. It's called discovery. Of course, we know we have a right to see the discovery. The state has to present the discovery, okay, evidence against you. They would not present it. And I said, ma'am, this is where you are supposed to present the evidence that you have against me as the state. And I'm asking for it. And we are in court now, are we not? And this is where you're supposed to present it. Nope. The state refused to present because I wasn't on the phone. And they know they had no evidence on me. Okay, so that was the first court date regarding this dumb ticket. Okay. And then a few months later, I think there was a second court date. And I requested it again. I requested the footage, and then I requested the footage from the state prosecutor's office, Burnsville prosecutor office, I believe, and then they switched to like an Apple Valley office. That they denied giving me the footage. Then they tried to say I had to pay $40 to see the footage, and that's called racketeering. A racketeering charge, because you can't charge somebody to see the state footage, especially when I've had 2 court dates where you could have presented it to me. So I knew that they had nothing on me. I knew they were completely making up this charge. Okay, so then I think 8 months or something goes by, and I never heard anything. They said, well, just wait to hear from us for another court date. Okay, all of a sudden I get a text like I did on a Sunday. Same thing that just happened right now on a Sunday. And it didn't even look like it was from a real court. Like I said, it looked like that. It was from some kind of crazy number that wasn't attached to the Minnesota court. Okay. And they said, oh, you have a court date tomorrow. So this was on a Sunday, and I'm supposed to end up just dropping everything and going to court on a Monday afternoon. I said, well, so I called the court in the morning. I said, I can't get off work. Can we reschedule this? They would not reschedule it. The judge would not reschedule it. It's this really corrupt judge. Okay, then I forgot his name, but I can find out. But so then I ended up just barely being able to get off because I did have leave time and everything, and I was able to get off in time to make it to the court date, and so I get home. And I barely enough time because, I just got this message on a Sunday, and I get home barely in enough time, and I get on the phone and I call the court and I said, I'm waiting for the Zoom link for this court date. And then I get the court tells me, oh no, this time it's an in-person court date. And I said, ma'am, all the other ones have been Zoom court dates, and so why would this be any different? I said, I'm waiting for the Zoom link, and I'm sitting here and I got off work for this. Oh no, this one is in person, ma'am. If you can't make it, then we're going to have to proceed without you. I said, proceed without me? Without any representation of any kind? You can't do that. Oh no, that's what they did. They proceeded without me present or without any public defender or anything. It's 100% illegal. Okay, then, and they charged me, this judge charged me with both charges, as you can see. I was convicted, even though I sent into the court immediately and got the brake light issue fixed, I was still charged with that. And then even though they would not provide me with the evidence or the state's evidence, just called discovery, and the judge had no evidence at all presented to him from the cop, because the cop had no evidence. It was a fake charge. The judge went ahead and convicted me of both charges. Okay, then it went on, and then I tried to appeal this, and I sent this appeal letter to the Ridgedale court in the mail, and I got the tracking number. I never heard anything. They never responded back to my request for an appeal. You have a right to an appeal. And on top of it, I'm following this tracking number, and I see that it was picked up. I filled out the correct paperwork. It was called a motion for appeal or something like that, because I talked to a lawyer at the Ridgedale court, and they said just this is what you need to fill out, and I did, and I sent it in with the tracking number, and the tracking number said it was picked up by an agent. Not the court, it was picked up by an agent. This is how I know that the CIA agents are involved with the Minnesota court system, okay? And this message that I got on a Sunday, like I did the same thing that happened to me in this particular situation, was sent to me by some other company. This isn't a real court number that they gave me. As you can see, this number says it's not in service. So who is pretending to be the Minnesota court? It's the CIA, okay? So we got the CIA that is completely infiltrated the Minnesota courts, and I can prove it with this one. I have the tracking number. Literally says that my Ridgedale court documents for my motion to appeal this particular charge, these two false convictions, was picked up by a CIA agent. Okay, it literally said on the tracking number, picked up by agent. Okay, so apparently it never got to the Ridgedale court, and it was intercepted by a CIA agent. Okay, this is how crazy the Minnesota courts are. So do you think I have any chance of having any kind of real court date in Minnesota? Myself, I don't, nor anybody else does, especially if you're on a targeted list. Okay, so this is how dangerous it is in Minnesota right now. Not only is the voting rigged, these fire departments, they're worthless as far as any kind of a health and safety violations. They've took the ballot right over to the police and fire department, and I believe that they were removing the votes that they didn't want. I believe they're involved in voting fraud. I believe they're involved in health and safety violations. There was another thing in Golden Valley, just so people know, too, that it was one of these, I was taking pictures, I was taking videos a few times of these issues with these water towers. Okay, one of them was when I was in Shakopee, and one of them was when I was driving through Champlin, and then the other one was in Golden Valley, where I was seeing that for some reason the water towers were covered up. And when we asked about it, they said, "Oh, they're being painted." And I said, "Well, that's weird, because you don't really need to cover it up like that if you're painting. In fact, it's the opposite. Is if you just painted, you should let it air dry. So it really doesn't make any sense to me why you're covering up these water towers." Okay, so it was right here. So they see all these things down. This was in Golden Valley. This happened. Golden Valley, Minnesota. This is the water maintenance department, the fire department, police, that whole same area. Something weird going on there. They're covering up the water towers and completely. Okay, how do we know they're not putting snake venom in there? Snake venom, who knows? Heavy metals, radiation, who knows? Something weird. So people drove by and they're like, "What are you doing exactly?" And then they said, "Oh, we just painted." They had the tarp completely cut. So it's a tarp on the top, and it was completely covered. And then when we asked, they said, "Oh, yeah, well, we just painted." So, okay, well, it doesn't really make any sense to anybody why you need to cover it up after you painted. Isn't that where you should let it air out? Okay, so these are the things that I would really question. This was in Champlin, but there was another one in Golden Valley that happened like that too. Okay, so a lot of corruption in that area, uh, and so I would be very concerned about all these issues as Minnesota residents, and so I'm facing this next one, and I can't even get a hold of the court so they can send me the Zoom link, and so I don't know, I can't make it there for court. I'd probably be pulled over twice by the time I even get to court. I'm so targeted in Minnesota. So I don't know. It's just like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay, see what I'm saying?